Hi, I'm Frank Pierson. We're at the Huntsman World Senior Games in St. George, Utah. This is my 13th year here, and at 90 years old in last August, I'm the oldest guy in both the cycling and the mountain biking events. There are 4 cycling events and 3 mountain biking events. Now, by the time I got to the 3rd mountain biking event, I had a fractured rib, and I'll tell you about that in a minute, but I didn't do that race because of that. So I'm going to go through these medals and kind of explain the whole thing as we go. It's off the cuff. So here we go. 4 cycling events. This is my road bike. This is my cycling bike. And this medal says, Frank Pierson, Cycling Hill Climb. Men's Division 1, that's expert, 90 to 94. And I think the closest category below that, they come in 5-year categories starting at 50. I think my closest one was 80 to 84. They didn't have anybody in the other one. So then, this was in Snow Canyon State Park, and I have a little trick. I come up here a few days earlier and I stay in Snow Canyon in my motorhome, my old Cortez, and I just get acclimatized and bike around there, and then when the first race comes up, all I have to do is get on my bike, coast down the hill a mile, and that's the start, and it's 3 1/3 miles up a hill, and the hill ends with a higher little incline at the very end. Of course they put that at the very end. And so that's one medal. Another medal is, the second day we did the cycling time trial, and that was out somewhere else. They do these things all around the region depending on what they need to do. And also they like to cater to the population. They take these things to different places in order to get everybody involved locally. Not only the cyclists, but the mountain biking and everybody, and the population. Now in this one, same category, expert, 90 to 94. And in this particular case, there was a record set by you-know-who, but for a very special reason. In the 27 years of the Huntsman World Senior Games, I guess they've never had a 90-year-old do the time trial. I don't know if they've had it for the 27 years, but however long they've had it, no 90-year-old, I'm it. So I set the record, and maybe next year I can come back and try to break my record. Time trial. That's about a 12-mile operation. And here, the third thing, I don't particularly like this race, and I'm certainly crazy at it. It's called the Criterion. And you just go round and round and round something. Well, as it happens, St. George has an old abandoned airport on a plateau. And they go around the 2 runways, just around and around for 30 minutes. And so I got time 27:58 minutes full. That's a very special situation, won't go into it. But that's another race, very oddball race. Okay, this one is for the cycling road race. That's the end of the 4 events. And of course it's a big deal. It starts in a little town called Ivans, but there's another start called Gunlock Turnoff, and then there's a 3rd start called Gunlock, a little town in a canyon. And it depends on which category you're in where you start. Most of the people start at Gunlock, about a half of the group, and that includes me. That's like a 20-mile run. The other ones are more. I think the maximum is somewhere around 40 miles, something like that, or 30 miles maybe. So anyway, that's that race. And this is a gnarly race. It's got everything in it you can imagine. But I had 2 special objectives before coming up here. And one of them was, in this particular race, 2 or 3 miles into the beginning, they have something called the wall. Now, on other documents, they call it the switchback hill. But the mountain biking people, we're not there yet, but the cycling people, they call that, when we get there, oh my goodness, I've switched. I'm in the wrong hill. No, that's the right hill. The cycling thing has the wall, and that's it's a, I don't know, 500 yards up on a incline, and again, there's more incline at the end of it than there was the rest of the way. So that seems to be the way they build mountains around here. So I got through that one, and so much for the cycling. It was all terrific. Now here's the other bike. This is a mountain bike. It happens to be a new bike, and I really need to learn a lot more about this bike. First thing is, it's got stronger disc brakes than I've had before. Those are really big disc brakes, and it has other bells and whistles, which we won't go into here. But the first race was the Monday following the last race of the cycling events. And what I do is I go out to the location of the mountain bike race, which in this case was Green Valley, just outside of St. George, Utah. And I hang out there over the weekend and get acclimatized again and try to do the trail and so forth. And I'm trying out my new bike. Well, remember I had passed a law that I'm not going to do any crashes on this. Well, right off the bat, I not only do a crash, but I do a complete cartwheel because I hit a big rock. And normally, if you just let these bikes go, this is a 29-inch wheel, big one, and it's got fantastic shocks on it. And they can take you can go over a lot of things that you can't normally go over. But I saw that rock coming up, and somehow I didn't react correctly, and I grabbed the rear brake too strongly. And then the rock, of course, stopped me. So I did a cartwheel. So the next thing I know, I'm on the ground, looking up at my bike, circling overhead. I don't know why I'm laughing. And it banged up. You see on my knees, and I got all this stuff here, and I got all this stuff here, and I got some stuff on my shoulder. But the real thing is I hit hard on my right rib area. And it was really sore, and I was worried about it. And I thought about all that all night. I got back on the bike, and I coasted back to my motorhome, sitting out in the middle of the Green Valley with very few people there. It's very lonely there. And next morning I decided I've got to find out what's going on with this. And I drove into St. George to a place called Instacare, which is a clinic, and they x-rayed me. And the guy comes back, the doctor comes back and says, "See this? Yeah, you got a fractured rib." And I said, uh-oh. But then I asked him, "Well, Doc, if I can figure out a way to do these mountain bike races, will it do any damage to that rib?" He said, "Well, it won't do any damage if you don't do any falling again." Of course, and I decided, well, I'm going to go for it. On Monday, we did 2 races. There's only 3 in mountain bike. The first race is one of these, mountain biking hill climb. Again, expert 90, 94. I'm only 90-year-old, not a whole bunch. And it says on here, fractured rib. I got that on the back. So I did that. I did these 2 races. I'll tell you about the other one in a minute. With a fractured rib and a lot of pain pills. And it made it work. So I finished those, and I got 2 more gold medals. This one is, that was the hill climb. This is the downhill. And the downhill is pretty gnarly. You'd go for speed, see how fast you can get down. It took me 13 minutes something to get down. Before I came up here, I had really 2 special objectives. There is that bad extra incline at the end of the hill climb and cycling, the first race. And I wondered before I got here whether I could make it up that hill without walking, because some people walk. And I also wondered whether I could get up the wall, which would be the end in the road race, without walking. I got up both of them. I was, man, fantastic. Both of those hills. That was my personal objective. But then a big surprise happened. I didn't expect this at all. There's a guy named Dave Richardson, and he is famous, but the downside of that, he got killed in the process, which is why we have this award. Dave Richardson, back in 1998, was doing the final road race in cycling, and he was coming through Snow Canyon, and you get up high speeds there if you want to. And he went around a corner. The road is fine, nothing wrong with the road, but the curve couldn't handle 50 miles an hour. At least he didn't do it with. So he went crashing off into the rocks, and that night he died of a heart attack. So all of the years since 1998, they have established this Dave Richardson Award for one guy each year. And this one, you can't do anything to win it. You can't go faster. I told my wife, in order to get this award, which I got this year, you don't have to go 50 miles an hour, you don't have to crash, you don't have to die. But what you have to do, your peers, some almost 400 cyclists, have to choose you. And you know, they just choose any name they want. They throw it in a hopper. At the end of the 4 days, this award, I was sitting there, and there's a social at the end with all these people in that room, having dinner and talking and having some more awards. And they called out, "Here comes Hollywood Frank!" No. Hey, Hollywood Frank, guess what? You are the Dave Richardson Award for 2014. I about fell out of my chair. So this is it. Fantastic. But, one more thing. They have overall winners. And this jersey was the overall winner in cycling. So this year, you get something that says that on the back side, a regular cycling thing with pockets back here. So I had 6 of these. I had the Dave Richardson, and I had 2 overalls. I don't have the one that you show for the mountain biking overall. So I really am appreciative of being able to do this. I've had a mixed bag of great fun, success, and some happenstance, which I won't go into. Aside from the rib, I had a big blowout coming up here, and I broke the water tank in my motorhome. Anyway, so we had a good time. This is a great setting. 10,750 people this year. Terrific. And after this, I was going to go to the Grand Canyon, and on the North Rim they have something called the Rainbow Rim Bike Trail, and I was going to take that trail and try it out, and then maybe do a little hike with some of my friends. I have some guide friends that I've accumulated over the years. One of them, Kurt Robinson, who's actually taping this right now. And but I have elected not to do that. But we had a party last night in Fredonia. So you can drink all these you want. Like I saw dance. I know. It's kind of ameliorated a little bit by Cointreau and Grand Marnier, but got here again, and I'm hoping to do it again next year. Thank you. Anyway, so that's it. See you next year, guys.